Hi, welcome to one of the video lectures in the proof course Practical Data Analysis for Researchers. In this lecture, which is part of the first module for the course, I will give some more backgrounds of the software R and R Commander used in the course. This mini lecture is part of a larger set of mini lectures in its introductory module for the course, where some backgrounds of the statistical software R and R Commander will be presented in a nutshell. Additional information on the subject can be found from the references indicated. When you are going to analyze your data from your experiments in a statistical way and you're searching for software to help you with that, you will find, for instance, when doing a Wikipedia search, that there is an enormous list of statistical software tools available and also tools for data science or data analysis, which have all kinds of aspects running from very simple and user-friendly to very advanced and with a steep learning curve, but also packages which are commonly known like SPSS or packages like Minitab or Stata, but also some packages which might be known in your specific field, a field of medical engineering and similar, for instance. When looking in this list, you will see several categories, for instance, open source software, public domain software, firmware. And that also means that it might be on first view an enormous amount of possibilities. But on the other hand, realize that software is not an aim as such, but the software will only help you, hopefully in an efficient way, to get your data analyzed. That means that the philosophy of the software is that software is not more than a tool which is helping you to analyze your data, which we are not hopefully depending on. And it also means that a course on the use of statistical software is not that relevant for you as a researcher because you want to focus on the principles of statistics and data analysis only with the help of such a statistical package. So that means that the choice of the statistical package is some part of the decisions you have to make, but you can be somewhat flexible in it. For this course now, we have made the decision to run the course with the statistical software R, and that's for several reasons. If you look at those reasons, then what's important with R is that R is has some similarities with MATLAB. That means that R is open source, so you can look at the program lines, the script lines, which are defined. And furthermore, R is also building on a very large community of active R users. But the difference with, for instance, MATLAB is that R is also freely available. That means that you never have a license issue when using R. We'll see how R can be used throughout the course with different examples. But you can look in somewhat more detail at the specific features of the software as such. A very important feature of R is that R has a structure in which you have the core of R, but in which you also have a large number of packages. Compare that with MATLAB, where you have toolboxes. If we look at those packages, you can get an overview of it, and with those contributed packages, if you look in more detail, then over the years I've collected data on it. You see that we're in 2017 there were 11,200 packages. Now at the moment of the course there are more than 16,000 packages. So you see that there is an enormous growth of the packages which are available and which everybody can use. Realize that these packages are also running from very trivial, very simple to very advanced. And it's also important to notice that a number of newly developed techniques, for instance, was PhD research from the field of applied statistics or methods for statistics, they are quite commonly implemented in these type of packages as part of the research work. That is, in our experience, one of the main advantages of R, although realize that there are also other alternatives. For instance, Python might also be a good alternative, and of course also the more user-friendly, commercially available packages like SPSS, like Minitab, like Stata, or like, for instance, the statistics toolbox in MATLAB. Because the number of packages is that large, it really is a challenge to keep an overview over the packages that are available for which techniques, for which research questions, for which fields of applications. And to help you with that, it's good to know that there is a so-called CRAN task view available. That CRAN is in fact the set of servers on which the packages are distributed. And with that task view, the packages are sorted with respect to their field of applications. So for instance, here you see that you have a task view, so a collection of packages, for instance, for chemical physics, or for clinical trials, or for econometrics, or experimental design, but there is a longer list. And realize that those lists are really kept up to date by specialists in the field. That also means that it is quite likely that if you are working in such a specific or specialized field, that there is such a task view available, and that from that task view you might get some suggestions or some ideas about packages that might be helpful for you. If you're interested in using R, well, we'll demonstrate it throughout the course, but if you want to know some more aspects of it, then there is a large number of documentation available within the R site. You have a number of R manuals, but you also have a reference to books in which R are used. Those books might be statistical books in which examples are discussed on the basis of the R output. They might also be related to R in more detail, for instance, the R programming. Two very good resources at the level of this course are, on the one hand side here, the book R in Action. That's also the book we use for references at the different mini lectures, because that's a very nice and balanced combination between the statistical technique and the underlying logic of it and the implementation in R. And the other one is the book R in a Nutshell from Joseph Adler, which is a somewhat more advanced overview of the possibility of both techniques, but also the book of Adler is paying attention to the programming, the sound way of programming your own packages, etc. That means that if you want to go further in the use or the application of R, I think that both of these might be very helpful resources. Because there's such a large amount of information available on R, it's also very difficult sometimes to find the relevant place where this information can be found. And therefore it's good to know that there is an R-specific search engine, which is called, as indicated here, rseek.org, which means that this is a search engine which is having a preference for results which are related to R. It also means that in this search engine, and I will demonstrate it later in a live demonstration, you can enter statistical techniques, for instance, you're interested in, and then you might find one of those packages out of that very enormous amount of more than 16,000 packages, which has already implemented some approach for using a specific technique you might be interested in. rseek is in fact my first search direction if I want to get some additional information about statistical techniques in R, and rseek is really up to date. So if a new package is published, that information is quite soon also searched and therefore available through rseek. You also have some references on practical R, and here you'll see by William B. King a number of tutorials in which all kinds of commonly used statistical techniques in the field of research, with a preference for instance, biomedical research, but also applicable to other fields and disciplines. They are all with a very specific example discussed both the statistics part of it, so the underlying logic, as well as the way you can analyze those data with R, where a remark is to be made that here you use R in the script line version, whereas we are going to use R with the help of R Commander, which is also for some part menu driven. However, I think that in the tutorials of William B. King, though they are not really of a very recent date, but they are still very helpful for the basic techniques. Another aspect of R, which is nowadays becoming more and more important with modern research, is that when you are going to publish your results in a paper, then the journal is often having the need that your results can be checked. So therefore, it's becoming much more important that you can do reproducible research in which a colleague of you can find or can check your findings just from the basic data. Important now is that within R, they have special properties to make your analysis reproducible. And that's really a very big advantage of the use of R, which is script line, so programming oriented, compared to, for instance, SPSS or Minitab, which are point and click graphical user interfaces. Because with the reproducible research in R, you can really also save the exact script you have used to analyze your data, and then a colleague or a referee can use that script or can make small changes to it to see what's the consequence of it. There's a lot available on it, and realize that some special tools for it are Sleeve, which is making, in fact, a combination between your R research and the LaTeX type of environment. You also have Knitter, which is somewhat more general with respect to the word processor you are going to use. We are going to use R in a graphical user interface, and if it is okay, you have already installed it. That's R Commander. But realize that apart from R Commander, what is also quite commonly used when you are a frequent user of R is the so-called R Studio environment. Sometimes there's some confusion between the R Commander and the R Studio, in which people think that they are more or less at the same level. However, realize that R Studio is an environment which is focusing on writing your own script line programs. So R Studio is more an interactive development environment for programs, whereas R Commander really is an approach for, in a user-friendly way, directly performing statistics. And that's the reason that we are going to use R Commander in this course. By the way, in principle, it is possible to run R Commander within R Studio, but it is not recommended because sometimes you might get the system, let's say, hanging if R Commander is not in an appropriate way communicated with R Studio, for instance, for addressing some graphical output or similar. R Studio is also freely available, so if you have need to do really more advanced work with R, an idea is to go to or to work with R Studio, and well, there is also some nice documentation for it, but then you will find out that R Studio has in its structure some similarity with MATLAB. By the way, it's also possible to couple R Studio with MATLAB and the other way around. So that means that if you are an enthusiastic MATLAB user, it even might be that you can implement relevant statistical packages or programs within MATLAB to do your analysis from within MATLAB, but making use of R, and of course also the other way around is possible. These are some remarks with respect to the software in general, but also specific for R. And throughout the course, we will demonstrate its use, but realize that it's very easy to shift to other software if that's the standard that's used in your environment.